Hi, everybody, and welcome to this webinar for OdinText. Thank you all for joining us. Just give another minute while I'm seeing other people coming into the room and connecting their audio. So while they do that, let me just get out of the way a few of our housekeeping notes. So this is the first webinar in the series as we're getting ready to launch the next version of OdinText. So we're going to cover a lot of things today, and we'll have additional webinars as we get closer and closer to release and be able to deep dive into different aspects of the next version. Everybody in the webinar today is an OdinText user. This isn't something that we're putting out for the general public. This is just something for current users of OdinText. So the other housekeeping note is on questions. On the right-hand side of your screen, there should be a Submit a Question button for you, a box and a button. And so if at any time during this sneak peek you have a question or comment, don't hold back. Feel free to fire those away. And while Tom's going through version 3, I'll be in and we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can. Also at the end, if you're interested in joining the beta and testing out the new version, as soon as we're bringing other people into it, we'll have instructions for that at the end. So without further ado, let me hand things over to Tom.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everybody, so much for joining us today. Tim, you want to give me screen control there? All right. So as Tim said, we're just 2 minutes after the clock, so give a few more minutes for people to log in. So before I get to showing you the sneak peek of what's coming, did want to just mention to everybody to keep an eye on the blog. We've been publishing a lot of text analytics tips, various case studies, and so on. In fact, for today's demo, I'll be using some data from the last text analytics tip, which we looked at the whole protest issue around NFL players taking a knee using Google surveys. And I think we'll be doing more of those. We've done a few in the past. I hope some of them will generate inspiration for you on different ways to analyze the data. The one that perhaps is of most interest to me was the one we did actually a webinar together with the TMRE on last week. And if you missed that and if you're interested, just email us at the end and we can send you a recording. What was truly interesting about that was text analytics on a massive global scale where we, again, using Google surveys because it's so fast and cost effective, but of course it can be done with any data. We analyzed over about 16,000 comments from 10 different countries, 11 different cultures in 8 different languages, and used machine translation, so from Japanese to English, Portuguese to English, German, and so forth, and very quickly analyzed the results in I think it was 2 hours total time, and we'll show you how that was done during the demo. There's an ebook and also a blog post about it. So want to just keep that in mind that we're publishing things like that all the time on the blog. The other thing that we've had especially since Tim came on, and we've been talking more to you folks, we've had a lot of people come to us with success stories, and want to thank especially Kelsey Salisbury, who published one of her stories on our blog just not long ago, and that generated tons of interest from other users as well as others outside. So we actually have several case studies, client case studies, and blog posts in the hopper right now. Tim probably can add a little bit more in terms of the kinds of examples, but they really span the gamut. So we have one about job satisfaction among truckers coming out. We have one in the finance industry. We have one from a hospital, major hospital, and then there's some that we talked to users about, and they started working on it, and of course it got stuck, or sort of legal decided not to let it go. That's unfortunate when that happens, of course, But what it does do, though, is it still helps to build a case internally at your organization for what you're doing. So we're happy to talk to you about those kind of things, even if it doesn't end up being presented at a conference or appearing on the blog. But thanks so much again for that, Kelsey. It was really fun and interesting blog post to read. So without further ado, let's move over to the sneak peek of what's just around the corner for you guys. So we've been listening a lot to what you guys want. And of course, OdinText is more than text analytics software. It is really mixed data analyses. And so we've been working hard, and in terms of really rethinking the whole architecture behind OdinText, the back end, first of all. We realized that because we are not limiting you to just unstructured text data, we want a back-end architecture that going forward will allow you to take advantage of any kind of data. And so if you do need to do something with just structured data, then so be it. If you want to do something with text data only, of course, you could do that. The real value, of course, is using the two together. But that meant we needed a background that would allow you to do almost anything. And so we worked hard and long on that and created what we called version 2 internally. And this is just a quick screenshot of that. We've got several tabs across the top. I'm just showing you here on the advanced group editor, where we have the capability to really build any kind of groups and do any kind of editing to the data and so forth. Our analysts rather like this new version and everything it can do, and have used that on several analyses. However, I kind of hated it because of what you see here. It was, well, reminiscent of the version that everybody loves and it has been using. It got a bit complicated. And of course, the value of OdinText is not just speed and power, but that the software, the GUI itself, guides you in the right direction to make the right kind of analyses and so forth. So even though this was a fully working version of the software that we called version 2, I ended up throwing it away. And we went to work. We went back to the drawing board to develop what we're calling version 3. And of course, when we bring out version 3, this will really be our ongoing version where we will be working on it as users are using it. We'll be adding new features, so you won't have to wait for major releases. So I want to cover some of the quick high-level overview differences and similarities. First of all, just in terms of account access, that's going to be simple at first, but it's going to allow basically 1 or 2 people, if need be, or more, to be account managers at our client companies, and they will manage users below them if you have several users at your company. Beyond that, something that we added were dictionaries. So the ability to quickly upload any dictionary, apply any dictionary to any project or parts of dictionaries, share dictionaries with colleagues inside your organization. Obviously, some of them you don't want to share with anybody, and those will be your own user dictionaries. OdinText will be supplying you with a few more dictionaries. The ones that we've been supplying typically are the emotions dictionaries and the customer satisfaction type, product type review dictionaries. We're adding a few others. But importantly, any project, of course, may usually create some valuable dictionary definitions that you want to apply to future projects. And we made that extremely easy to do, either uploading a dictionary from scratch and or creating one from your tables. So you can see here, these are my dictionaries right now in my account. We have a few OdinText dictionaries here, and then we have dictionaries that you would share with your coworkers. I haven't shared any right now in this account with anyone. Let's move over to the project section, which same idea here. You will have your own projects, and there will be certain projects or data sets that you want to may choose to share with other users in your organization. I'll actually, let's just upload a data set, though this is very similar to what you have been using. Again, this for the first time, I'm not using actual client data for a demo, so we're going to use something we ran, that NFL data set we ran last weekend. And you can see OdinText scans and decides what's the best kind of variable, and you can override that. This is a pretty simple data set. I added a fake date here in case we wanted to look at that during this demo, and we're going to do upload. And as that data set is parsing and so on, and you can see you'll get messages like that whenever something happens, warnings, or if you do something successfully. And we'll be speeding up as we go to launch. We'll be doing optimization as the last step, caching and so forth. We're also moving to more powerful servers on Amazon Web Services. And we'll be offering special type of data for our bigger clients. I mean, clients who are using bigger data. We see that they have very different needs than smaller ad hoc clients, and so we want to work on both, help both, and serve you best. So if you have very specific needs on giant data, then we'll set up to OdinText to be optimized to do what you need it to do, and versus if you're using it mainly for smaller concept tests, ad copy testing, and so forth. So as you can see, we are still changing a little bit, may change a little bit the layout, but it's very similar in terms of you'll have your automatic terms section where you can look at 1, 2, or 3 term combinations, so whatever you want, and switch between those. You have the emotion section as well. We have an AI section that we have been, there is AI in several places, but we'll be using some AI to sort of predict as a way of triangulating some of the most important themes inside your data. And you can look at them. Depending on the data, it'll be more useful on some data sets than others. And then you have your custom table, which also works similarly, except, of course, you can apply anything in the columns you want and anything in the rows, any kind of mixture of structured or unstructured data. All the rest of it in terms of the KPI being selected and the kinds of statistics over here. So let's go to whether they're against or they support NFL players protesting. You can do that, of course. And let's take a look at some of the charting that we've changed as well. So you'll remember the axes visualization. We can do an axes visualization here in version 3 as well, and we are plotting here on the same against protesters playing to the left in red and those 4 to the right. This visualization has been changed in multiple ways, in that it's better, more accurate in terms of the statistics we are using in the background. And you can also mix match and plot structured data if you want. Any column or row that you add to this can be plotted alongside the text data. You can plot not just the 1, 2, or 3 gram combinations, but your saved issues, emotions, or anything else you want in this table as well. We have co-occurrence plot, and of course that works the same way. You can decide whether you want the connecting edges or not. So again, we can see here, for instance, in this case, that those who are against the protesters are more likely to be talking about that, about football and that they should be just playing the games. They're not there to watch politics. Whereas those who are for the protests are more likely to talk about police brutality, actually mention taking a knee, that they have the right to protest, and another group here is reminding us that they have free speech. And some of these issues here are, of course, more interspersed. We have, I'll show you some of the other visualizations in a minute, but just to go back here to the to the one term or different combinations of terms, we're using machine learning here as well to help you build your custom issues. So whether you're looking at 1, 2, or 3 term combinations or anything else in the chart or here in the tables, if you want to create a custom issue out of it, OdinText will automatically see inside the data and recognize that people are saying not just protest, but that they're using protest, protesting, protested, protests. If this was a multi-combination term, it'll create more complex Boolean searches automatically. You can still test it like you did before. It auto-generates a name for you, which you can, of course, override. And if you want to create that row, it gets saved to your custom table like last time. You can also pull in or add this to a custom dictionary. So let's move on. The emotions are here just as usual, so we'll skip that for now. Let's move over to the custom table. This is blank right now. I didn't add anything. We can add anything here. I'm going to actually let's add a dictionary because we started working on this project already. So the NFL dictionary is here. I can add just a couple of definitions, or I can add the entire dictionary at once, add those rows, and now we have, we can see that disrespectful was the most frequently mentioned thing, mentioned by almost 10%, followed by the flag, respecting the flag, and that they are no longer interested in football and so forth. Let's move over to prediction. This is one of the most powerful, one of my favorite features that we've added. Other than visualizing whatever the KPI is, we can also run predictive analytics here. So at the click of a button, OdinText has gone through whatever table there is. So if you're looking at one-term combination, it'll run all the one-term combinations. If you're looking at two-term, three-term emotions, right now I'm running the dictionary that was created here. And to the right, we see the higher values, those who support the protesters, and towards the left here, the lower values, those who are against the protesters. So these are the top 10, and you can see the R-square value here and the coefficient if you're interested in that. OdinText is actually running multiple advanced predictive analytics and selecting the best one for you. It's looking at things like multicollinearity and the shape of the data and so forth. On most data, it will be running OLS type regressions, but we have some other things that are running as well that will be used instead. And I see there's might be a question there, but Tim, just keep an eye on that and I'll continue here. If you want more than just the top 10, you can do export here, and of course everything can be exported, and I'll show you that. But here we have the coefficient and the p-values for this regression. So no longer needed to export and go into SPSS or SAS or whatever you used to use. Hopefully more and more you'll be staying inside this tool to do what you need to do. Moving on, we can, of course, you can drill it down into any of these charts. You can switch the drill down variable. Remember, in version 1 we had just whatever the KPI is, but here in the drill down you can switch different fields. You can also switch different open ends if you had multiple open ends. Adding columns, let's add a couple columns. If we select a variable here, we could do a date-based one, or we could do one on gender or anything like that. You can pull in a difference column whenever you want. I'll add let's add a trend, and let's make it a monthly, and add columns here. And so again, for purposes of just having demo data here, we just added sort of a fake date field. But you can see whatever table you're looking at, we've now added the trends, the significance here. You can decide whether to show everything or just show what's significant. You can decide what confidence level to use. and you can add a difference column at the end, just like you did before, and sort on differences between the columns. So if you want to, of course, chart longitudinal data, we've got line charts now available. We've got bar charts as well, and you can chart any of these kind of things as also. So, and also moving between different charts, if you move between different charts, it will pull the data from the last chart. So if you ran a prediction, and you've got found the 10 things that are most predictive of whatever the KPI is, we could switch this and predict what males are more likely to be talking about than females, or what have you, really understand the language of what they're talking about. If you want to then chart that in the co-occurrence plot or the axis plot or the bar plot, it will use those. So if you move horizontally between visualizations, it'll pick up what you did in the previous visualization. If you want to run it again from the original data, just start the plot over, and it'll pick here by default the first 50 topics, and we can see that here those who support are more for freedom and so forth. Oh, one last thing before we take some more questions. In terms of visualizations, sorry, exports, you can export any visualization in PNG format. That's really the preferred type. It's better than JPEGs because it resizes well. But we also have SVG vector images. So if you're gonna print something, traditional print, and you need something very high resolution, or you want a really big chart, you can export that. Of course, you can export any table you want as well. Raw data export is also available, just like last time, and there is now the option to really export anything from your original data, any field that from the original data you uploaded. You can select if you want to also export with that any of those data points, the 1, 2, or 3 grams, and the default that it's suggesting is 50, but you can export more of those. You can export anything from your table, or you can also just apply an entire dictionary and export that. So any combination of these you can easily export. And along with version 3, we are also releasing an API for the first time. That is, documentation is already created. We'll be offering more in that API, but we've created the API at first to be ready for what our biggest clients have been asking, biggest data clients who are most likely to use the API have been asking for. And so that will also be available. So that said, any questions coming in right now, Tim?
So we had one question on the export, which you just went in and had already answered. And we had another question come in on switching the open-ended, switching between the unstructured columns.
Switching between the so yeah, so you're switching different text fields.
Correct.
Yeah, so that is something now you can upload more than one text field. As you know, in version 1, each project was around one text field. If you wanted to merge a text field, that you had to do that before uploading. Now it is taking multiple text fields if you have them, and we will be adding the ability to merge those shortly into, so if you have 3 text fields in the survey and you want to merge text field 1 and 2 for whatever you're doing in the table right then, you can do that. So all these popular wish list items have really been added, and it's just about getting out some of the bugs now, but it's already working very well. Any other questions?
Nope, that's it for now. A few other comments, but not questions.
Okay. Let me just switch over to the PowerPoint for a second here, and we can take a few more questions if anyone has any. We're putting out this email address, as Tim said, to get in contact with us for those who are interested in the beta. We want to make sure that everybody has a good experience, and that we're able to, importantly, react and make good use of the beta commenting. So we will be releasing people into beta a bit at a time, but all our existing customers are going to have priority and get in before the actual release, which we're scheduling the release for the beginning of Q1, but I expect all our current customers to be in much sooner than that, starting this month.
And Tom, we have one other question. How will this affect currently loaded projects, or will they have to reload their projects?
Obviously, your current versions of OdinText will continue to run, even those obviously were in the beta test, and you will continue to use that. We are in fact upping our server power, so I don't know that it'll be a huge noticeable difference, but we're upgrading by a speed of 5 times. So that you may see something there on version 1 as well. But for the beta initially, the first few weeks of those who are in the beta, if you are saving projects to version 3, we will probably not be saving that data as we do a push, because it is early beta. But pretty soon, once we've ironed out those bugs, we'll be adding the functionality, so we won't delete any of your data for the beta testers as well. But for the first few weeks of beta, yes, when we do a push, you may lose your data. Any other questions? I know we're almost up on 30 minutes.
We are almost up on the 30 minutes, and there was one question about preserving version 1 in the version that they're currently working in.
Yep, we are definitely going. We just updated security and so forth on version 1, so don't worry. We know that version 1 has been very popular, and of course, everybody is a little bit hesitant about trying something new, but really version 3 does everything that version 1 does and has some awesome extra features, as you saw. I have myself used version 3 now for a couple of real analyses, like that NFL one that we posted on the blog last Sunday, and I'm going to try to get another blog post up maybe as early as tomorrow. We ran another survey on that horrible incident in Las Vegas, and we looked at, so we asked about gun control issues. So I may try to do a blog post on that. But so I'm already using that for real analyses myself, and definitely, of course, some of our other analysts are. So, but definitely, we want you to be able to continue using your current version. So don't worry, that won't disappear for you.
Awesome. So again, as we're coming right up on the end here, I want to thank everybody for their time. Again, that email is beta@odintext.com, or you have our email addresses. You can shoot us an email, and we'll be bringing people into the next version. And thank you very much for this half hour, and we'll be in touch.